Hello, Robert Moynihan here, the founder of Inside the Vatican magazine with Father Charles Murr, Don Carlos Murr in Spain. And Lady Rotha has already typed in a message.
I love
Greetings
her.
from the Isle of Man. All right. We are delighted on July 17th to be with you. Greetings and blessings from Texas, says Christian Unity. And Bill Zupancic always writes to us. He's in Puyallup, Washington. So he's out on the West Coast. John Paul Sandoval, also on the West Coast from San Diego, California. And it's evening for you, Father, and it's morning for them.
Yes, yes.
I thought, first I would say all the covers of the magazine that we show. Oh, here's Gonzalo Suarez again from Sao Paulo, Brazil. He's a regular. We appreciate Gonzalo very much. And some point we would like to have your view of things. Donna Aberley from Ontario, Canada. Donna, greetings. And at some point we'll all get together. This reminds me of the fact, Rafaela, greetings from Michigan. Thank you, Rafaela. Richard Jesse, I know Richard. I've traveled on pilgrimage with Richard.
Sure. We both know Richard and Molly.
Oh, that's right, because we came last spring.
Right.
We're now in midsummer. We were with you at the end of March,
right,
in southern Spain, and we're coming back to see you again in October. And we really need to get 2 to 4 more people to fill up our pilgrimage. And Deborah is got the little video that she could show right now. If you'd like to do that, Deb.
Join us for a unique pilgrimage, a Lenten retreat. Come with us on a unique pilgrimage and retreat to renew your spirit. Experience the beauty and richness of southern Spain. Our retreat master, Father Charles T. Murr, a renowned Catholic priest, best-selling author, philosopher, theologian, trained psychologist, and pastor of souls. Father Murr will guide us through 3 mornings of spiritual reflections at a convent located in the historic heart of Carmona, Spain, promising a transformative journey. Experience an intimate evening with Father Murr at his home. Wine, dinner, music, and conversation, a highlight of this unique experience. Explore picturesque towns in Andalusia, each with its own history and charm. From the ancient streets of Carmona to the majestic beauty of Cordoba, the breathtaking views of Ronda, the remarkable village of Centenil, and the historic wonders of Seville. Our pilgrimage will be filled with awe-inspiring moments. Join us on this profound spiritual journey and rediscover the joy of faith, fellowship, and renewal. Book your place now and embark on a pilgrimage and retreat unlike any other.
Oh, Father Murr, it looks like it's a very nice trip. And those sisters were...
Everything looks great, Robert, except somebody's got to talk to that American priest about losing some weight. Holy Toledo.
Okay, well, we could make this into a type of...
a diet retreat?
Well, it could be a health retreat. Oh, we have someone writing us in Spanish, Father. Cristina P. Domingo. Buenas tardes, Robert de Padre Murr. Desde Valencia, España.
Very good.
So good evening from Valencia, Spain. John Patrick is watching from Australia. Good. I can't believe it. The whole world.
Believe it.
So we've got some important things to bring up. It's almost unbelievable, and I can't even get my hair brushed. You don't have that problem.
I'm shedding no tears for you over that problem.
So, I have 3 points marked down, and they're all, in a sense, interrelated, and they all go to the terrible drama, confusion, and almost fear of our time. And we need to come back with faith, hope, and charity. And that's somehow the main outline of our program. The drama and fear is this assassination attempt against Donald Trump the other day. And it has just given all of us a sense that life is very fragile. People say 1 or 2 inches different in that bullet, and he would have had it in his forehead and been killed. And we would now,
Fraction of an inch, Robert.
Yeah.
A fraction of an inch.
but it's our civil society more or less works on the fact that dramatic violence we kind of push off to one side. We hope we don't have muggings and we don't have guns, but and we have wars, but we try to talk and make peace and stop the wars. But this mid-daylight shooting of a leading candidate for political office with all sorts of questions about it and mysteries, as if it was allowed to happen. And
Well,
This
you
is-
know the reason for that, right?
well, what do
reason-
you think?
The reason for that is that because for years, look, let me start it this way. I was a fan of computers when they first came out, and I got my first computer in 1984. I thought this is a magnificent machine. I didn't understand what being online really meant. I just used my computer as a word processor.
Yes.
For parentheses, right? However, by little, I got to the idea. I understood being online, getting into websites, this and the other thing. There is so much garbage out there. It's sad. However, you always have to take the good with the bad, right? There's a lot of great stuff out there too. And
Yeah.
one of the greatest things, contribution for me anyway, that the computer has brought into my life, and I think to your life too, Robert, and to our viewers, is the truth of a lot of things is coming through. Where we weren't hearing the truth an awful lot, we were hearing this side of it or that side of it, or the government's view of truth, or what the government wanted us to know about this, that, and the other thing. While at the same time, the government was hiding factors that are really important to understand the reality of the real truth of anything. We're getting all of that today. We're getting all of that. And we're getting it through the computer. But what has happened to a great degree, we have lost faith in our government. And I say that not just for the United States, it's practically true of every country in the world. Certainly the communist countries. I mean, they have, you get the daily supply of news from from Pravda or from the Truth Factory. They make up the truth. But what surprises us most is that our own government has not been truthful to us, and we're getting to mature more in that regard. So I think nobody is buying the truth. No one is buying the story of the government when it comes out. That they give these facts. Well, they turn out not to be true. I think the Kennedy assassination, Robert. We both 13 years.
I was a little boy and I remember it.
I remember it very, very distinctly. Every detail of that day I remember. But since then, we've come to know that no, it was not what the Warren Commission said. All I'm trying to say with all of this, without getting into so much detail, is there is plenty of room for finding the government unbelievable. Now,
Okay.
that's on the part of the government. As Catholic Americans,
There you go.
we have another problem
Yes.
because we are finding that our church is not honest.
Okay, I was going to raise that question, and you sort of Vulcan mind meld here. That was a reference to Star Trek, where the two characters would understand each other's minds. Yes, at least we used to be able to go into the chapel or go into our room and think about the majestic, serene history of the faith, even in suffering, but it was solid. It was a
Yes.
place to find refuge in the midst of the lies and cheats and steals and creeps in our political and social life.
In the midst of all of that, the corruption that is and always will be the world, right? We had a place that was, of course, it's made up of human beings, and there are limitations. We always understood that, but its dogmas, its moral teachings, everything. We didn't question them. They were the way they were. They were the way God wanted them to be for us. We find out that there's a dishonesty also in the church, and this has destroyed the faith of countless, I would say millions of people. I say that conservatively. They've just given up on the faith completely. I know many of them. I think you know many of them too. They just said that's enough.
Well, a lot of us, even we have friends and members of even our extended family who have their doubts or they're fed up. It's not uncommon these days. It's so very different from it was when we were children.
Sure.
So we've had 60 years. And this brings me to the two other topics, just so people can start to prepare for what we may say. One has to do with something that didn't happen. There were rumors for weeks now, pretty well-founded rumors, so there must be some truth to some document being prepared in Rome that would formally and effectively ban the old Latin rite, the old liturgy, the Tridentine rite, and no longer allow it to be said in parishes. It would still permit it to be said in certain special religious congregations that are devoted to it, but keep it out of ordinary parish life entirely. But that document didn't come out. People were saying it would come out on the 16th, which was yesterday. And yet we don't know that it might not come out. And that means the way we pray, which has a lot to do with the way we believe, is also confusing and under attack, and people are off balance with regard to this. And then the third case is our dear friend, Archbishop Vigano, who's been excommunicated from the church. And I wished that this could be avoided, but you've told me that on some occasions you can't mix and you can't resolve a problem, and God somehow has to make clear what the truth is here. But I had great esteem for him, for his faith, and it's hard for me to take a man who is regarded as orthodox on every point of doctrine as a non-Catholic. And this tells me further that we're in great confusion in so many areas now, where we look at people who promote, Zen meditation or something, and they are regarded as mainstream Catholic now. And people who go back to the deep roots of our tradition and hold fast to those roots are regarded as somehow no longer really Catholic. And I wanted you to reflect on all these matters, Father Murr, with your great wisdom.
With my infinite wisdom and knowledge. Right? I'll tell you what. Let me start with Archbishop Vigano. I love and respect the man very much. You know him. I've never met him, but I've read.
I do know.
I've read what he's written, and I've followed him all these years, and I find him to be a man of character, of moral character, upstanding, and a man of deep belief. I have one problem with him, and people are going to find this strange, I'm sure, because I have criticized the Second Vatican Council a lot, and especially in the last. I was going to say especially in the last 50 years. It's not just recent.
The long critique.
A long critique, very long critique. However, I would never get to the point of saying the following. I would never call it an invalid council. And I'll tell you why, Robert, for many reasons, but I'll give you a strong one that just makes common sense to the everyday man and woman. I don't know how you can come to the conclusion that a council was not valid if in that council 2,881 bishops participated. All of the bishops in the world, practically, in the Catholic world, participated in that. How do you say it's not valid? Right? Now, I'll tell you, here's the deal. I've always said this, and I agree with Monsignor Lefebvre, and I agree with Vigano also, and with any number of priests and bishops who refuse to be public with their opinion on the matter, but I know how they feel. We've talked in private. There are issues with the council. There are issues that should be discussed. They should be cleaned up. They should be defined. They should be more specific. They should be clear. They have not been made clear for 50 years. This is a real problem. Such a thing as religious liberty and what have you. There are some issues that were brought up, and they were brought up purposefully in ambiguity, Robert. You know this and I know this. The language is ambiguous. It's sort of this way, that way. You can be either way. There's wiggle room. We used to call it wiggle room in all of this. There shouldn't be. It should be cleared. Now, all of those things should be protested and discussed rather than what is it called? This synodality, the synod on synodality, whatever it is. Rather than that approach, it would have been very helpful if any one of the popes from Paul VI, JP1, JP2, Pope Benedict, and even Francis, if they would have called a real synod, or a real synod be called to discuss those problems, those issues of Vatican II. That's what should have been done. Right? That's not being done. So we're still in that ambiguity. However, I would not have gone to the I would say extreme that Archbishop Vigano, and I say this with all respect, came to, that the council should just be wiped from our memory. No, that's not correct.
Well, I have two or three remarks in response to what you said. The first is that I'm not sure that he said specifically that it was invalid. I think what he said is that it was so perplexing and ambiguous in what you yourself described as interwoven phrases and passages, which were put into a kind of compromise format in 4 or 5 areas of the council documents in such a way that you could interpret it without any danger to orthodoxy and be fully Catholic, but you could kind of draw it out in the so-called spirit of the council, spirit of openness, spirit of sort of bold development of doctrine in the modern sense. And because this was the truth of the matter, that both of these tendencies can appeal to the council, he wrote that he felt that it was wiser to leave it all aside. And he did that on the basis of the fact that it was considered a pastoral council, the only one of all the councils that explicitly by the Pope was declared to be not to address any question of doctrine. He said there's no doctrinal problem in 1962, 1963.
No, there wasn't any.
He said the church is more or less 100% in agreement on doctrine, but the matter of presenting those truths to the world in a time of massive new communications, meeting with people that maybe haven't been met with before in various distant parts of the world, trying to develop a way to preach the gospel that was not in question to everybody. And since the council was explicitly pastoral, it really didn't dogmatically define any teachings, and certainly didn't define them in opposition to past teachings.
Yes, but it left them open to personal interpretation. Any way anybody wanted to interpret it, they could, which is a major mistake. It's horrific. I mean,
it was.
Listen, so much trouble this past half century, you can't believe.
Okay, so maybe there was he may have in some way been, he could perhaps reconsider his position on that matter, but that might be the case for many of us because, and actually, I'm going to
do that. He could reconsider his his position on that. But at the same time, he should, I would say he should insist that the question be discussed. It's a valid question that he brings up. His protest against it is quite valid.
Yeah.
And let me just get on to a couple of other things. He
Okay.
also rediscovered, as a mature priest, he rediscovered, and as a bishop, the Tridentine Mass.
That's precisely correct. He wrote that the other day. He said,
I thought that was beautiful, but look, I've got to tell you something.
yeah,
He's not alone.
yeah,
Thousands and thousands of priests all over the world rediscovered that Mass.
right.
Thousands.
And that may be the reason. That may be the reason we're now facing the banning of that Mass, because
I'll tell you something. His Holiness can ban the Mass as much as he wants to, and write about it and condemn it if he wants to. It's not going away. It's not going away. And this is the problem. This is the problem that the Vatican has faced, because the Vatican has painted itself into a corner.
Well,
There is no reason that the Tridentine Mass and the sacraments cannot be its own right inside the Catholic Church. We have this already.
I mean, actually, Pope Benedict stated this authoritatively just a few years ago. So we're in cognitive dissonance in listening and obeying him and his memory, and we knew him and we appreciated him. He didn't die so long ago. And
Something
now,
else, let me just throw this into the mix.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And he was also a brilliant man and a brilliant theologian, right?
Yeah.
When his reasons, when you would read anything that Benedict wrote, and Ratzinger as cardinal prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, when you would read anything that he wrote, it was deeply theologically beautiful, correct. What we're getting today doesn't have that depth. It doesn't have that depth. It doesn't have that beauty.
well, this raises the question. I mean, Francis has always said that he is the happiest in the streets. He said, I was a priest in Buenos Aires and I went out to talk to families. Hi, how you doing? Do you need anything? He was not. He never finished his dissertation. He couldn't finish it. He's not a scholar in that sense. He's got different behaviors and attitudes and desires and hopes. So,
Yes.
But he's not a man who's an ignorant man at all. He's widely read, and he keeps books on his bedstand, and he even keeps things like Saint Teresa of Lisieux, whom he has a deep veneration for. And he so often spoke about the danger of a type of secular humanism, as expressed in the book by Robert Hugh Benson, The Lord of the World, which speaks of a dangerous sort of anti-Christian or anti-Christ, modernist, humanistic, technologically advanced enemy of the church. He's spoken about this many times.
The same church that he's leading in that very same direction today.
This is the contradiction we face, and that's why I connect it even to the peculiar off-balance feeling we have after an assassination attempt. We have an off-balance feeling, all of us. We are feeling off-balance. And Archbishop Vigano has said, let's get the balance set again. And he's been accused of three things: not being in communion with Francis, not being in communion with those who are in communion with Francis, and not accepting the Second Vatican Council. And so we've talked about the Second Vatican Council just a bit. I wanted to tell you and the audience, I've got a plan to interview a man who says there was a tremendous amount of involvement by the CIA in the Second Vatican Council next week.
I've heard
Next week. And
what it's worth, Robert,
Yeah.
and I think you already know this, Malachi Martin was also of the same opinion.
Yeah. So this would raise questions. I mean, suppose the Roman emperor had sent his agents into a council and said, you must vote this way or that way, or we want to develop things in order for the empire to be
Well, actually,
supported.
the Roman emperor did do that. His name was Constantine.
Well, but the church had people who said, this is our belief and our faith, and we'll go, maybe we'll hear your concerns, but we'll define the faith as it has always been believed. And well, yeah, I agree that there's always a tension between Herod and John the Baptist. and
Sure.
John the Baptist was executed. John the Baptist told Herod he was doing some things that were improper. And the world is the world, and the church is the followers of Christ sent to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. And the record of the church is a kind of, sometimes we're disappointed with what members of the church have done. And sometimes we're very proud of people who have stood for the faith and carried it forward. And we've got a 2,000-year history. There's nothing else like it, but it seems to be more dangerously or more endangered today of being regarded, with disdain, to be set aside, to be forgotten by millions and millions, as if it's not a great, beautiful, divine tradition and testimony.
Well, those very notions that you're mentioning right now, which are noble and beautiful, are not being backed up by Rome. This is the problem. That's why people feel off balance, because they are.
Okay, so these things are on our minds, and we don't quite know how to go forward. And I myself have been asked on several occasions to take a much clearer stand than I've taken. And Archbishop Vigano said to me, he said, "You are a journalist by profession, and as a journalist, you must report all sides." I've talked to everybody.
Right?
I can talk to Cardinal Parolin, I can talk to Archbishop Vigano, I can speak with Pope Francis, and I can speak with someone who condemns Pope Francis, because I'm a journalist. But at a certain point, people are saying, "Well, what do you think?"
There you go. There you go, Mr. Journalist. Right?
So I'm now right there at the point where I must take a kind of articulated position, and I'm working toward it by making some of the arguments right here that the council was a pastoral council, that there were types of infiltration. We talked about the commitment made by certain leaders of the council to make it a revolution in the church. And that was not ever stated to be the intent of John the 23rd. So there were people in the council attempting to undo what the very Pope himself had said.
There's no question of that. There's no question of that.
And then also, you and I are both witnesses, because we lived through this entire period, and we lived through it from fairly close vantage points. We watched it unfold with pain and with sorrow, as people abandoned the church, or people were excluded from the church. People lost their faith, or people declared their faith. And now we're getting old, and we're finding things are reaching a new climax, as a number of things we always have believed are unacceptable for the Christian faith are now apparently about to be woven into the faith as well. So that at a certain point, we will be forced to take a stand and say, this cannot be.
But yes, Robert, you're absolutely right. But here's another problem with the regime, okay? And that is the following. There are questions, and Archbishop Vigano does a great job of this. What he's bringing up the fact that formally or materially, we have a pope who has uttered some things that are not just wild; they're actually on the face of it heretical. Now, what he's asking for, what he's been asking for, is the same thing that 5 cardinals asked for at the very beginning of Francis's pontificate, with the dubia. Please answer these questions. We're not accusing you. Would you just answer these questions and clarify them? In so doing, I'm sure what the 5 were saying in essence, we're sure that what you're saying is correct. Just explain yourself. No explanation. No.
Okay, so
you can't be acting like that when you're telling everyone that you want an open, honest, transparent church. You can't be acting that way when any problem is brought to you. Say, no, we're not talking about that. I refuse to address it. You can't do that.
Well, I mean, how would you treat those 5 cardinals? Should they be brought forward for excommunication.
Well, according to what the spirit of Rome is like today, why not? We should all be excommunicated. Here's the thing too. Anybody who would back up, anyone who would back up what Archbishop Vigano is saying would technically be ready to be excommunicated also.
Yeah, we have a terrific problem now, and it's going to be quite costly to face it. And I don't want the faith of the ordinary Catholic to be shattered and or brought into question, and they'll stop attending Mass and stop, going to any of the. I mean, if people are doubting that the Church is telling the truth and faithful to Christ, that's a spiritual wound of profound danger, and I don't want that.
It is, and they are. That's the problem.
But I can recall, if I speak honestly, that already in the late 1960s, as a young boy, as a teenager by then, I thought the Church is going a little off the track here, and we're kind of embracing things that we shouldn't. And I don't think that that's changed throughout these whole 55 years.
It's not only not changed, Robert, you're absolutely correct. And it's not only not changed, you've been able to see, and I have been able to see, and countless others have been able to see, a tree by its fruit. We've been able to see the lack of vocations, the number who have left, the closure of all of our schools, Catholic hospitals. Everything is closing. We see everything being sold off, many things being sold off, and I don't care how they want to say it or not address the problem, but they're being sold off to pay off lawsuits. Okay, people know this. I don't know how they see that how the authorities, whether it be in Rome or diocesan, think that people are not seeing this. They are seeing it, and few are being honest about it. And people who are being honest about it are either excommunicated or their diocese is taken away from them. This is kind of nuts.
Okay, so I don't think we're going to get to the answer today, but we can still bring forward some comments that readers are making and wrestle with them. Here's a Gloria. Well, I don't think her name is Gloria. I think this is Glory to the Father.
Glory to the Father, yes.
If Vigano is correct, that there is a fake church that exists alongside or inside the real church, then it makes sense that he would be fine with being excommunicated from that fake church. I should say, yes, he's written that and he said that, but he certainly would love to be part of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Roman Church and not have it be such a contentious matter now, because we're supposed to treat him as if he's a stranger, according to the document of excommunication. And if I still treat him as a friend, I find myself in danger of also receiving some type of penalty. So we are in a situation where we need to go forward to some healing of some sort, but how it has to be in the truth. And yet it must require, I would imagine, meetings and discussions and then agreements and conclusions, because men have made these divisions and men can overcome them unless the devil is in the way.
And I believe that Vigano is in a position to really bring about some great changes in the church. He has to continue, according to me, he has to continue insisting that the questions he's bringing forth be answered. That's all. That's not, is that outrageous?
Kilroy Jones.
He's bringing forth questions and he wants them to be answered. Martin Luther brought for, and God forbid that I'm proposing Martin Luther as a model to anything, but Martin Luther brought forth some questions that were not answered for 500 years. Well, they were answered in the Council of Trent. Okay, fine, but as far as a personal answer and a responsible answer, just recently we're getting around to that. What Archbishop Vigano is pushing for is that these issues that he's bringing forth be addressed. Be addressed. Right, that's all.
Okay, so we're part of that. We're going to address these issues, and this person, I don't know who JLG 72 is. 72 may be a year of birth. JLG may be the initials. Thank you for writing, JL. Check out David Wemhoff's work, Ray John Courtney Murray, and Time Life. But what he's referring to is their influence at Vatican II. And what JL and you don't realize is that's whom I'm going to talk to next Monday, Wemhoff.
Is that right?
I'm going to have him on the show.
I thought you were zeroing in with particular interest in that comment. Yeah.
This person, I mean, is this the Holy Spirit, or how is this happen that I don't tell anybody? But this is the man, David Wemhoff. We'll be talking with him next Monday. And I'm going to have him back with you, Father, if I can as well.
That'd be great.
Because he went to Freedom of Information and he got documents from Washington about agents that were sent to work with bishops and to work in Rome. And we're going to blow the lid off of this story, which he's written the book, but somehow it's never gained any traction.
Well, you know what, Robert? Just an aside here, but it's an important one, I think. I think American Catholics particularly, but Catholics worldwide, understand that, for example, the FBI being sent to investigate Latin Mass goers in their parishes, that's not just the FBI. Somebody in Rome coaxed that, or the American bishops coaxed that, not gave permission for it, but said that it would be fine. The United States government isn't just going to go in by itself and do such a thing. They had support. This is what people are upset about. Their own church is not being honest with them, a church that's claiming to be transparent.
Okay. Father, we've got another comment, and a lot of people are very well informed among our audience. Loki says, Robert, friend of mine, says the opposite. He was with agency, I guess he means CIA, and said Kennedy, means President John Kennedy, who was shot in 1963, when the second stage of the council was just beginning. November 22nd, right in the middle of the second session of the Vatican Council. So he wasn't around for 2.5 sessions. He was dead. But anyway, he ordered the agencies not to interfere. And of course, the agencies may not have obeyed him. But in any case, I think it may have been their lack of interference that led Marxists in. And this raises the question of Marxism, which is this ideology. And I take ideology to be a set of ideas which become like a frame for your thought. You receive them, class struggle or what. So you're willing to kill a woman who's a very wonderful woman who's a member of, say, the aristocratic class. And, in the French Revolution, they killed members of the aristocracy without regard to the fact that they might have been very kind people. The idea of an ideology overcomes the idea which is the Christian personal faith given by Christ through the Holy Spirit, where we deal with people even if they're part of a class or a party, an enemy group. We deal with them person to person. So we're
not supposed to have those distinctions. The rich are told to give their help to the poor. The poor are told not to judge the rich, this, that, and the other thing. That comes with Marxism.
Yeah.
And Marxism uses that as a tool for getting into people's heads.
I agree. And I say ideology is demonic in a sense. It's a spiritual power, which is like a cage in the mind. And it's the true now of this politically correct thought. It's true of setting men against women and women against men. Anything that's an ideology departs from the Christian scriptural teaching about our nature and how we ought to deal with one another. And these ideologies, which I take to be realities of a kind of spiritual, intellectual nature that possess us, this is what we're suffering from. In so many ways, our culture is possessed by demons, ideological demons.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Yep.
Okay, so I can now then turn also to the question of the liturgy and the Mass, and the fact that it wasn't banned, but there's strong pressure to ban it. Now, does that suggest maybe even possibly a little pushback? But what it means to me, though, is the way of praying is the way of believing. That is, lex orandi, the law of praying, lex credendi, the law of believing. So if you pray to God as if he's holy, you believe he's holy, you believe he's sort of the fountain of all holiness and therefore of all life and being. He's the creator and the inspirer of our world, of heaven and earth. But if you no longer sort of reverence him or pray to him as if he's holy, but he's just a kind of abandoned us and left us to create charitable activities and help our brothers and build soup kitchens, but we don't have God and the worship of God in our external prayer, we no longer believe in it after a while. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are. You're using a word that's very important to use, and you're using it correctly. Worship. And this is the distinction. This is the distinction, a major distinction between the old and the new Mass. In the old rite of Mass, we worshipped God. We came together to worship and adore God. In the new, I'm speaking in general terms, all right? But in the new, we worship each other. We celebrate man. We celebrate our fraternity, this, that, the other thing. And the old, look, I don't think this is a surprise to anybody. I offered the Tridentine Mass daily. I say this Mass daily. Why? Because Pope Benedict woke that up in me. Just as Archbishop Vigano is saying, he rediscovered, he discovered this as an old man, the beauty of the Trinity Mass. When I offered that Mass, all I can tell you is this: when I offer that Mass devoutly, calmly, quietly, a low Mass, by the way, not a solemn high pontificate, I can't tell you the difference. It's day and night, the difference of what's going on in my mind and in my soul during that Mass. That's so different than the other one. The other one that's taking into account the fraternity of people and let's hold hands and kumbaya. That let's be excited about ourselves and the central that is, it's man-centered, man and woman-centered. It's man-centered. It's not God-centered. I'm sorry, but it's not. And this is, I think, what Archbishop Vigano is saying. And when I was reading that document that you sent me, The Precious Blood of Jesus, yes, that's exactly what he was describing is exactly what I go through. And what
I have that document, and I think maybe we should take a look at it. Can I share my screen? Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Share.
It's kind of a long document to read through the whole thing, Robert, right?
I know, but did you see this now or not?
Yes, you sent it to me and I read it before.
No, I'm just wondering if we see it. So this is something Archbishop Vigano wrote a few days ago, a homily on the solemnity of the most precious blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. And then he says, he starts by saying, allow me to share with you my serenity of mind in facing this trial. And you can find this at this website, which is he wrote this on the 8th of July, and we're now the 17th. So he wrote it 9 days ago. And this is the home website, Exsurge Domine, which means rise up, Lord. It's calling on the Lord, to rise up and defend his people. And that he's created this website, so you can find all these things on his website. And he talks about this very fact of what we've been saying. And this is what I wanted to read. I experienced the same inner peace when a few years ago, and that's, I think, just around the time when all of these letters started to be written and his condemnation of corruption, both
Yes.
in the, in abuse of children, but also of doctrine. And as he went through these things, just as you, he kind of went back to the question of the Mass and the celebration of the Mass. A few years ago, I rediscovered the traditional Mass. So he's not claiming he kept at it all these 50 years.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Right.
And this means really we start from this, that our whole church has sort of obediently accepted this experiment, but we've accepted it without a deep inner joy and peace, at least not completely. And maybe we didn't completely reject the new liturgy, but we felt there was a desire for something more. And so, which since then I have never stopped celebrating exclusively, and which has brought me back to the beating heart of our holy religion, to understand that being united to Christ the priest in the offering to the eternal Father must necessarily be translated into the mystical immolation of oneself on the model of Christ the victim, in restoring the divine order in which charity consumes us with love for God and neighbor, and shows us how incomprehensible dash as well as unacceptable dash it is to modify anything of this perfect order that the Holy Church anticipates on earth, precisely by placing the cross at the center of everything. Stat crux stands the cross, dum volvitur orbis, while the world turns. The cross stands while the world turns. And he reveals that for 60 years, however, along with the world, volvitur et ecclesia, the church turned, or has been turning. The ecclesial body has lost its point of stability. Right here. Yesterday, in the mad attempt to adapt to the world by softening its doctrine, today in the deliberate desire to erase the cross, a sign of contradiction, in order to please the prince of this world. And
Right,
then
Robert,
okay.
I think that gives the idea. The point is, what happened was this: the Mass was never abrogated, right? But we were told, I'm telling you the truth, we were told that it was mortal sin for a priest to offer the old Mass. I'm talking about the late 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up until John Paul said it could be offered. It could be offered.
You mean Benedict?
No, John Paul.
Okay, John Paul.
Pope John Paul, I believe in 1983 or 84, gave permission to priests to ask their bishops for permission. With their bishop's permission, they could. Many of the bishops decided they would not give that permission. Then John Paul II invited all of the priests of the world to write to him in Rome, and he would give them permission with an indult. This is fantastic. Now, all of a sudden, this meant, yes, this could be celebrated. It wasn't sinful to celebrate it. We were told it was sinful to celebrate the Mass or even to assist at it. This is incredible. That's what point it came to. Now, all of a sudden, Benedict, who's a brilliant, brilliant mind, and he matured fantastically since the council, because he got to see the consequences of the council, some of the bad consequences of it, and tried his best to rectify a lot of things in his writing and all. He expressed beautifully what the Mass was, and that it could be celebrated by any priest, anywhere, at any time. Wow. Now, this is fantastic. Well, after the priests started celebrating that Mass, thousands of those priests, I know I'm friends with hundreds of them, thousands of those priests said, we don't want to go back to the new Mass. This is so beautiful, so sacred, so meaningful, so everything. Now, it's funny too. Let me just put this in another parenthesis. Right now, there are meetings going on. We've become the church of meetings. Meetings about this, meetings about that. It's unbelievable. But there's another set of meetings going on about the problem of the lack of faith in the real presence, the true presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. Well, why do you suppose there is that lack of faith in Jesus Christ in the Eucharist? Where did that come from? They're saying between 70 and 80% of American Catholics, and I would say Canadian Catholics also, do not believe in the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Mass, in the new Mass. Right? That's the new Mass. They did a same poll with those who go to the traditional Mass. It's 98% of them do believe fervently in the presence of Jesus Christ. Well, what is that saying? By their fruits you shall know them. What does that say? I mean, come on, it's time to start addressing real problems, not having a 15th discussion on women deacons. We've got some real problems that need really to be addressed, and we haven't been addressing them for 50 years. What I like about Archbishop Vigano is he's addressing them. Now, all I'm trying to say is this. I think he's going to be he is an important man. To me, he's a very important man. And he's going to be historically, because what he's doing is pushing to be answered. He wants answers. He's demanding answers, and he has a right to have that. He has a right to those answers. He's a bishop. For the longest time, Robert, you and I have been in discussions here where I conclude it's beyond my pay grade. As a priest, I don't have any right to correct the bishop, or certainly not the Holy Father. I don't have that right. Right? However, a bishop does. Another bishop does. And especially since Francis has brought the whole papacy down to himself just being the Bishop of Rome, any other bishop certainly has a right to address him. The problem is that when they bring up these problems, they remain unanswered, and almost belligerently so. People are seeing that. You can't get away with that anymore. Not today.
Well, you've raised a lot of points, and there's no question that these are controversial. It has to do with the removal of Christ from the center of human hope, and the church was only here for that purpose. And the humanistic removal of the divine man, God, Christ, from the center of our hope seems to be the essence of this modernistic, liturgical, and doctrinal revolution. It's a humanistic revolution. It takes away the divine. It teaches specifically that to believe in the divine is a mental defect. It somehow makes it impossible.
It is, in a word, Gnosticism. It is, in a word, Arianism. We're going right back to the first heresies of the church, to deny the divinity of Christ. This was it.
We have many very good comments. We have Bill writing, yes, we were led to believe that the traditional Mass could no longer be said. And Katie says that was the plan. And then XOOX says the fruit is rotten. Well, which is really the question, again, that you could raise to the Pope and to the bishops and cardinals in Rome, and I can raise it. What is the fruit? But a lot of people, Kilroy Jones says amen. And he adds, definitely hail Vigano. So Vigano, now excommunicated for disobedience to Pope Francis, does seem to be receiving support from some people. But I can say also that others are writing to me saying, you're going to have to come out on the side of the Holy Father. People are writing to me and saying that. They're saying, we're all waiting. And then the Byzantine Heart said, and there are some who are questioning the new rite of ordination as well. And that is an issue that has to be brought up and talked about. Now,
But you see, Robert, this is what I'm saying is there are all of these questions, and these are legitimate concerns. These are legitimate concerns. Why are they not being discussed in a synod of bishops who have the authority to be decisive and give some good answers? No. We've got, look over here, look over here, look over there. Forget the main issue. And this is what's going on. That's why people are not, nobody's buying this. The synod on synodality, I can't tell you the number of priests who just think this is absurd. The whole thing is absurd.
I do have one.
And so many opinions are simply not being taken into question. You know that yourself.
Absolutely. No, that's what I wanted to. I've said this before. I don't want people to think I keep repeating myself. But I had a conversation with Cardinal Ratzinger. I would say it's 1994. I think it was. And I said, there's rumors that the church is going to now officially permit the use of altar girls in celebrating the Mass. And some are very concerned because this is regarded as a kind of pathway toward the priesthood.
First step, yeah.
Yeah. And Ratzinger said to me, no, it's not possible because it hasn't come across my desk. And I have to review it and make my opinion known and make my judgment of it known. And the next morning, it was announced.
Mm-hmm. Curious, huh?
It was announced, and it was, I had gone to Cardinal Vigano in that same week and said, what do you think? He said, yes, we're going to announce it because we in Italy are not uptight about having girls in the sacristy the way you Americans are.
Right.
So that told me with certainty that somebody had the upper hand, even doctrinally.
Yeah, somebody's running. Somebody other than the Pope himself is running things.
Okay, I think as an editor of this magazine, I think I have to say, clarity on many of these questions has never come all these years. And I too would like to know, what is the truth? Who calls the shots?
Yes.
Who's running it? And I think even Francis would be perhaps benefited by telling us who has tried to put pressure on him to say and do certain things and why. What global order wishes the Catholic Church to join?
What global order could that be? What could that be?
Could you, well, tell me what you think, Father Murr.
Stone chiselers? Would it be the stone chiselers?
Well, I mean, there are all sorts of arguments about our population, about who's going to run the planet in the next few decades. And there's strange things that occur, like that ceremony when they opened that tunnel in Switzerland. Did you happen to see that? The Gothic. Anyway, there were monsters brought through and people sort of dancing and bowing down to them as if they were.
Yes.
So it's as if humanity is in the hands of some powers that want us not to rise up to the full stature of Christ.
This was Cardinal Gagnon's whole inquest, his investigation of 3 years of stonecutters in the Roman Curia. And the point was that the Secretary of State, most of the time, believes itself independent of anything. They think they're running the show. This is going to get me in deep trouble. I know it is. But you know what? Just remember, Robert, we've got to close here. But just remember, I've said this on a couple of occasions. I have no thoughts or desires of suicide. If I'm found dead tomorrow, it wasn't because I offed myself.
Father Murr, I would like to join you in that thought. Neither do I.
Neither do I.
I'm trying to do something.
If people hear of a strange accident involving Dr. Moynihan and myself, it wasn't coincidence.
Well, we just want to remain faithful, and we want to speak with charity towards everyone, including those that we sometimes sharply disagree with. We say, why are you saying and believing and doing this? And how can you justify it?
If they would just, Robert, if they would just come out into the light.
Now,
Wouldn't that be marvelous? Just
Yeah.
take off the mask, sit down, tell us what you think and why you think it. But now this skullduggery going on behind the scenes and this, that, and the other. This is what has people disgusted with the Catholic Church today. Disgusted.
Okay.
They're not seeing honesty. They're not
So
seeing
I think that battle is being joined. I mean, it was joined, we might say, with the excommunication of the Archbishop, but it was joined in steps by showing films of chimpanzees on the facade of St. Peter's, by bringing in sort of pagan,
sort of pagan, Pachamama.
yeah, and sort of suggesting in every case that the traditional Catholic faith was laughable, that it was passé, that it was
They made a mockery of it.
to be mocked. And now they feel they have an awful lot of authority and power, and there's going to be required a certain integrity and courage on the part of the simple faithful. And this will be what Bishop Fulton Sheen said would be the necessity, that the laity would save the church.
Well, that's it. What do you think? Have we done enough to save the church today? Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think you should just bless everyone and see you next week.
Benedictio Dei omnipotens, Patris, Filius, Spiritus Sanctus, descende super vos, et manet semper. Amen. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Father.
Join us for a unique pilgrimage, a Lenten retreat with Father Murr in March 2024. Pilgrimage through southern Spain, a beautiful land where the Catholic Church is. Come with us on a unique pilgrimage and retreat to renew your spirit. Experience the beauty and richness of southern Spain. Our retreat master, Father Charles T. Murr, a renowned Catholic priest, best-selling author, philosopher, theologian, trained psychologist, and pastor of souls. Father Murr will guide us through 3 mornings of spiritual reflections at a convent located in the historic heart of Carmona, Spain, promising a transformative journey. Experience an intimate evening with Father Murr at his home. Wine, dinner, music, and conversation, a highlight of this unique experience. Explore picturesque towns in Andalusia, each with its own history and charm. From the ancient streets of Carmona to the majestic beauty of Cordoba, the breathtaking views of Ronda, the remarkable village of Centenil, and the historic wonders of Seville. Our pilgrimage will be filled with awe-inspiring moments. Join us on this profound spiritual journey and rediscover the joy of faith, fellowship, and renewal. Book your place now and embark on a pilgrimage and retreat unlike any other.